HasanAbi corporate. I don't even know what that is. All right, here it is. Mike Johnson has won the election to become the next House Speaker. Here's the full coverage. Mike Johnson also has a long laundry list of insane things that he has said and done. From what I understand, he's a young Earth creationist, which I think is pretty cool.
$1,000 is what I was just offered to pledge my support to Israel. This Zionist organization emailed me this.
I see a lot of this stuff. I don't know if this is real or not. Okay, but I guess maybe they even reached out to my fan accounts. Dude, DNC posted a cringe TikTok yesterday.
Every now and then I get a little bit terrified, and then I see the look in your eyes. Turn around, bite eyes. Every now and then I fall apart, and I need you now tonight, and I need you more than ever.
I don't want to say anything. I don't want to say what I want to say. All right.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. We're coming on the air with breaking news. The House of Representatives has, after 3 weeks of legislative paralysis, elected a new Speaker of the House of Representatives. His name, Mike Johnson of Louisiana.
I can't believe they got a Louisiana man by the name of Mike Hawk to be the Speaker. Respect. This shows decline. Okay, this is a nation in decline. Okay. Yet another example. This is a very unserious country.
Louisiana. Representative Johnson has secured the votes needed for victory. This happened just moments ago. He will replace Kevin McCarthy, who was removed as Speaker 3 weeks ago after being targeted by Florida Republican Matt Gaetz and others in the Republican conference. Johnson, age 51, became the Republicans' fourth nominee for the Speaker late last night after Tom Emmer of Minnesota withdrew after opposition from right-wing Republicans influenced by former President Donald Trump. One of the reasons that opposition arose to Emmer was he voted to certify the 2020 election. Representative Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan also withdrew in recent days in their bids to become Speaker because they could not secure enough votes to win in the House Republican Conference. Congressional correspondent Scott McFarland is on Capitol Hill. Scott, history may record this as the consensus of the exhausted. Republicans have been through this over and over and over again, and now they've landed on a new Speaker. What can you tell our audience about Mike Johnson of the 4th District of Louisiana?
He's in his 4th term, a former talk radio host, a lower-ranking member of House Republican leaders.
Yeah, having a former talk radio host is the worst idea of all time. Mike Pence. Mike Pence, probably out of all of these goons, is like the most manageable former talk radio host. I'm assuming this guy has a ton of insanity in his repertoire that we will be hearing more from. I love that this man is 3rd in line for the presidency. It's fucking awesome.
And as of 24 hours ago, not even a top vote getter inside his own Republican conference to be the nominee. Mike Johnson, as you said, also voted to decertify the 2020 election won by Joe Biden. The person who was the...
I like that everyone was talking about how, like, oh, well, Jim Jordan played a role in January 6th. And then they were like, the new Republican Speaker, Mike Johnson, was the mastermind of the January 6th plot. How the Trump coup attempt propelled Johnson's rise. I love that they went with a guy who they couldn't have found a worse person for this, okay?
Mr. Johnson, you helped lead the efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. Will you speak
Next question. The effect on the scene was to imply the media was dredging up an unpleasant episode from Johnson's past that besmirched his moment of triumph. But in reality, Johnson's efforts to hand Donald Trump an unelected second term are no mere biographical detail. I mean, I guess the only thing this guy hasn't done is turn a blind eye to sexual assault that was happening when he was an assistant coach, for example. You know what I mean? Oh, just don't worry. I got more. Mike Johnson was elected. He authored a national Don't Say Gay bill. But it's much worse. It would ban any exposure to transgenderism to those under 10 years old. It could ban trans teachers, therapy, and more. Not only that, but he is a young Earth creationist. He is a big-time advocate for, I believe, a national abortion ban. Like, yeah, he doesn't believe that dinosaurs exist, so that's fun. Russia, China veto U.S. push for UN action on Israel, Gaza. Act on the Israel-Hamas conflict by calling for pause in fighting in protection of civilians to stop arming Hamas and other militants in the Gaza Strip. United States put forward a draft resolution. Why did they veto it? Russia's UN ambassador Vasily Nebenzia accuses the U.S. of putting up a draft resolution that represented Security Council authorization of a ground offensive in Gaza by Israel, while thousands of Palestinian children will continue to die. After the double veto, the U.S. Security Council then voted on a rival Russian drafted text that called for a humanitarian ceasefire and withdrawal of Israel's order for civilians in Gaza to relocate south after a ground assault. Russia failed to get the minimum amount of support needed, winning only 4 votes. A resolution needs at least 9 votes and no vetoes by the United States, France, Britain, Russia, China to be adopted. It was Russia's second attempt at a resolution. Only 5 council members voted in favor of a Russian text on October 16th. The 10 members of the Security Council now plan to work on a new draft resolution, Malta's UN ambassador Vanessa Fraser said. This crisis is also gripped by a growing risk of regional spillover. This demands our undivided attention, she said. We have a duty and obligation to act. I agree. Well, Mike Johnson is here to save the day, boys.
The nominee as of this time yesterday, Tom Emmer, voted to certify that election, but the conference has pivoted to Mike Johnson, who just ran the table inside a fractious Republican conference, which right now has been defined by bad blood amassed over the past 3 weeks. You watched history. This has never happened before. A speaker has never been voted out by his own party. That's what happened 3 weeks ago with Kevin McCarthy. And you saw them come together on a series of nominees between then and now. Steve Scalise, the majority leader, tried it, didn't get the votes. Jim Jordan, the judiciary chair from Ohio, went to the floor 3 times, couldn't get the votes. Tom Emmer had the nomination for 4 hours and bailed out, couldn't get the votes. Mike Johnson just now got the necessary votes, swept his own party. This typically happens once every 2 years, Major. It's happened nearly 20 times this year, and it has concluded.
We'll give you, our audience, a little bit more on Mike Johnson of Louisiana. Let's look at some of the aspects of his most recent voting record. You can see there he voted against, as Scott McFarland just said, certifying the 2020 presidential election. He voted against legalizing same-sex marriage. He voted against a Ukraine aid package in May of this year, opposed the most recent continuing resolution in September to keep the government opening, and he was part of the legal team that defended former President Trump in the first impeachment hearing and trial in the Senate about issues related to Ukraine. I want to bring in CBS News Chief Election and Campaign Correspondent Robert Costa. Robert, that is to say, Mike Johnson has never been a committee chairman. He's never been a subcommittee chairman. He is a backbencher for a House Republican conference that quite clearly and evidently wants a backbencher, someone who is less experienced than those who sought the position and could not secure the votes to hold it.
That's exactly right, Major. And to really understand why Mike Johnson...
I can't tell if he's a backbencher or a mastermind. What's going on? Make up your fucking minds, media. What the hell is happening here? I mean, regardless of whether or not he's a backbencher, he is Mr. Anti-gay marriage, Mr. Anti-abortion. He is. I mean, I don't know. The rest of it is just like really basic stuff, like anti-minimum wage, stuff like that. But he's also pro-Israel. Hello, that is not unique. There is not a single member of Congress that would not be unequivocally pro-Israel. Have you met our Congress? What are you talking about?
Of Louisiana, this Republican most people in the country didn't know about a few minutes ago, is now Speaker of the House in the line of succession to the presidency. Let's look at a picture from last night of Congressman Johnson, now Speaker Johnson, surrounded by his colleagues, because this picture really tells you about why Johnson got this role. See, behind Johnson is Elise Stefanik, the conference chair. You have Steve Scalise over his shoulder as well, the majority leader. They're the leadership, but who do you see tightly packed around him? The backbenchers, as Major Garrett just said. It's the backbenchers who elevated him. Those congressmen and women who you don't know about. They're looking for someone to break up the leadership, someone new to come in, and someone who echoes former President Trump's politics in many ways. And this is someone who hosts a podcast where he talks about his Christian evangelical values with many members of Congress. He's well known inside the House, not outside the House, and he's someone who's kept a low profile on television, but he's well known as almost a conservative figure rising through the policy ranks in the House. So he has that foundation of relationships, even if he doesn't.
I love this. Speaker nominee Mike Johnson is a virulent Christian nationalist and anti-LGBTQ MAGA extremist, his critics. Perfect. Bro, he's from Louisiana. You fucking cowards. You absolute cowards. You got so close.
Doesn't have the political capital, which is going to be very...
You got so close to a beautiful man from Louisiana. You got so close. You went to the right state. You were so goddamn close. No, I'm not talking about fucking Aikido vision. I'm talking about... God damn it. Here, I'll tell you what I'm talking about. You got so close to a big, beautiful man. I'll tell you what. Also is anti-Holocaust. He's seen the camps, and he's come back with a beautiful idea about making sure that we pay more attention to funding to the Department of Homeland Security. No, I'm not talking about where mama at. I'm talking about Clay Higgins. Congressman retracts Auschwitz video and apologizes after criticism.
Could be a railroad anywhere, right? Except for this one's at Auschwitz, Birkenau. The expansion of Auschwitz, where 4 more large gas chambers were built.
The GOAT. My GOAT. You got so goddamn close, dude. You got so goddamn close to an absolute legend, and then you had to go with this fucking piece of shit. Really? You had the GOAT. You had the literal GOAT. He could have been the guy.
Garrett just said. It's the backbenchers who elevated him. Those congressmen who and women who you don't know. He's well known as almost a conservative figure rising through the policy ranks in the House. So he has that foundation of relationships, even if he doesn't have the political capital, which is going to be very important, as you know, Major. Facing him right now, real challenges.
Yes.
How to fund support for Ukraine and Israel, as well as government funding.
And just for our audience's benefit, Rob.
I like this, like, how to fund support for Ukraine and Israel. Like, it's such a hard prospect to push a Ukrainian funding bill and an Israeli funding bill. Like, that's the easiest thing to pass in Congress, man. It's as easy as, like, I don't know, condemning Hamas and offering full-throated support to Israel, which is the first bill that he passed, I think.
Robert, you know this well. I want you to help them walk through this. He will be the speaker at the top, the apex of power in the House of Representatives. But all the other Republican superstructure remains. Steve Scalise will still be the majority leader. Tom Emmer will still be the House Majority Whip.
The chair appoints the
meaning those people who sought this position will now be beneath him, and they will have to offer their support, their guidance, their floor capabilities, their legislative capabilities to this newly minted speaker. So he will be reliant, that is to say, Mike Johnson, on people he's just bested for this coveted position.
And we will see if they can keep a united front, because you now have a new speaker who believes, certainly based on my conversations.
Thank you, Paul Rules, for the 10 gifted subs. Allowing 10 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. I didn't even realize that it was top of the hour time until you just gifted 10 people. That's when I realized that realize. I'm Clay Higgins.
With his colleagues over the past 24 hours that he does have power now, and he wants to use it. Speaker Johnson's already issuing his own letters about his agenda in terms of how he wants to handle appropriations. It's not necessarily the agenda of Majority Leader Scalise, though Scalise, being from Louisiana as well and a mentor, is certainly going to be a right hand to this new speaker. So will Tom Emmer, the Majority Whip. But what's going to be intriguing to watch and important for the country is how does he handle spending on all of these crucial fronts. This is someone who comes out of the House of Representatives flank that's anti-spending, that wants to restrict abortion rights, that wants to restrict the size of government. And this is someone who is not just kind of a conservative, he's a deep conservative on social issues, cultural issues, economic issues. So you have right now in the United States someone with an ideology from the right wing of the Republican Party assuming the speakership of the House.
Republicans have described this 3-week period as chaotic, a bad look, and now they have a speaker, which means they are a legislatively re-energized body, which means they can now engage with the White House. So I want to go to our senior White House correspondent, Weijia Jiang, who joins us. Weijia, what's the perspective on this development from the White House?
Well, Major, the White House and President Biden have been very careful not to talk about any potential candidates who may become the Speaker of the House, because that wouldn't be in the president's best interest, because he has to work with whoever it is. And in this case, it will be a bit awkward because, as you've been talking about, Congressman Johnson led the charge in the efforts to try to overturn the election that Joe Biden won back in 2020. But they have talked about the urgent need to fill this void because right now President Biden is at the center of the world when it comes to the U.S. foreign policy. And he has been trying to convey that America is back, that allies can count on America, and that America is a leader for all democracies. But at the same time, you have this split screen of the dysfunction of Congress. And it's really fitting and really pretty remarkable timing, Major, that he's actually starting a press conference at this moment with the Prime Minister of Australia, who is here to talk about the security challenges in the Indo-Pacific. And so that prime minister has goals too, namely to get a submarine transfer that requires congressional approval. So all of this makes that yes, this is
back in elbow, mate.
For the president
elbow
to move his legislative agenda forward. So there will be relief here at the White House.
Give elbow to fucking submarines, mate.
Even if it is not whoever the president was hoping it would be, although he never publicly said one way or another. Major.
There are busy days in Washington, but this is a particularly busy day. And as Weijia just mentioned, there is a split screen effect worth taking note of. The House of Representatives now propelling itself toward swearing in a new speaker. Meanwhile, just down Pennsylvania Avenue and the Rose Garden of the White House, President Biden with the Australian Prime Minister. Weijia, I want to ask you, has the president said anything in his opening remarks or in engagement with reporters new about the situation in Israel?
Yes, Major. Yeah.
All right, we're getting past that. All right. Elbow. Fucking elbow. Fucking Albanese.